Gender is an important factor in the working of a language within a society. Gender as a social construct owes a lot to a number of social institutions, especially recently. Media has been a catalyst in defining various gender-related issues and ideas and notions, which has been there in our societies for a long time. And there are other institutions like family educational institutions, courts, religion, etc., who contribute to the assignment of various gender roles within a society. And these roles of gender within a society also contribute to the use of language by various genders, especially two important genders, men and women. Gender or the difference based on gender is quite different from the word sex, because sex is defined biologically. One is male or female by their physical making, whereas gender is quite amorphous as compared to the sexual variation, and it's quite social, and it may change or vary from situation to situation or from context to context. So gender is a socially constructed entity as compared to sex, which is biologically defined. The issue of gender comes to surface when one gender or sex is considered inferior to another. It may not be that prominent if we see, ideally speaking, a balanced society where both male and female have equal rights. But when usually we have, historically speaking, we have a differences in various societies in relation to various gender roles. Feminist theorists also put the emphasis on and fight against various ideological roles which has been assigned to these various genders, and they contest against the inferiority of women against men, which has been in practice in various societies. This is what is generally believed by many people. So they have been fighting against such notions. Sometimes societies practice such norms willingly and sometimes unwillingly. And as I said earlier, such practices do influence the use of language within the society as well. Beyond this debate of inferiority or superiority of men and women, we can always recognize that there is a difference between the language of men and women. Men behave and speak differently, and women behave and speak differently. Men have some particular expressions which women do understand, but they do not practice or use. Similarly, women do have their own particular expressions which men generally do not use. And if somebody uses the other gender expressions, it is noticed by the society, and we could see its examples around us. The role of gender in various language uses is an important issue of interest for the linguists, and there has been a lot of research and debate about it in the field of sociolinguistics. And issues related to gender differential tendencies can be found in style shifting, for example, between formal and casual speech. Some uses formal expressions more, and other uses informal expressions more. We'll look deep into this. Use of prestige or stigmatized accents or variants of a language, and then linguistic conservatism, and the positive and negative evaluation of such changes in the language use of the genders could be noticed or understood by various sociolinguists. William Labov and Peter Trudgill have been two important names which has worked a lot in these areas, especially related to the use of language by various genders in the society. Robin Lakoff is another name which worked a lot. Let's have a look at their studies. Some of the popular language differences which were identified by Lakoff in 1975, and his work could be considered as a pioneer academic work in this area, and she based on certain data which was empirical as well as some rough raw social data. She came to find out certain expressions or certain uses of language which are particular to women only. For example, she believes that women use hedges more, hedges like sort of, kind of, it seemed like, in order to make their language or language use more polite. They use super polite forms. For example, would you mind, if you do not mind, kind of thing. They also use WH constructions. Why don't you open the door? When they want to request something or when they want to make something look polite. They also overuse qualifiers. They apologize more in conversation. And if we see, men use more orders, whereas women suggest things more instead of ordering things. Men are, or they tend to be to go for conflict when raising an argument, whereas women go for compromise. Men advise more, women are understanding in their conversation. Men try to maintain their status, especially superior status. This is what comes to us as a conclusion of Lakoff's study. Women believe in sporting, even in conversation. So they believe in consoling each other when they are in such a situation. In order to understand these differences in men and women language, there are certain theories which have been raised. I will just mention two important theories. One which was proposed by Lakoff herself. She believes that the difference between men and women's conversation or use of language is because of men's tendency to dominate women in a talk, and she calls it, or it is popularly known as, dominance theory. Men are more likely to interrupt than women in a conversation, and it is a clear indication of their desire to dominate the conversation. This is how Lakoff puts it. However, many people disagree with this theory. For example, Tannen came with the argument that the difference between men and women talk is probably because that they grow up in different cultures. If we look even in our own culture, men are given a different exposure, whereas women are given a different social exposure. So the differences which come to their use of language in the society is probably because of this difference in their cultures. And it is further argued that the discussion or conversation between men and women should be considered as an intercultural communication. So, the difference between men and women talk is not because of any desire of dominance of one gender. Rather, it is because of the variations in the cultures in which they grow up. So, these are multiple aspects, and there are many more to understand these differences between the genders in their language use. And there are many to come further. Overall, they help us to understand the use of a language in a society in relation to these genders.